This week's Grimm Fairy Tales. There's some good ones. Old Sultan. A farmer once had a faithful dog called Sultan, who had grown old and lost all of his teeth, so that he could no longer hold anything fast. One day the farmer was standing with his wife before the house door and said, "Tomorrow I intend to shoot old Sultan. He is no longer of any use." His wife, who felt pity for the faithful beast, answered, "He has served us so long and been so faithful that we might well give him his keep." What?" said the old man. "You're not very sharp. He has not a tooth left in his mouth, and not a thief is afraid of him. Now he may be off, if he has served us. He has had good feeding for it." The poor dog, who was lying stretched out in the sun not far off, had heard everything, and was sorry that the morrow was to be his last day. He had a good friend, the wolf, and he crept out in the evening into the forest to him, and complained of the fate that awaited him. "Hark ye, gossip," said the wolf. "Be of good cheer. I will help you out of your trouble. I have thought of something. Tomorrow early in the morning, your master is going with his wife to make hay, and they will take their little child with them, for no one will be left behind in the house. They are wont, during work time, to lay the child under the hedge in the shade. You lay yourself there too, just as if you wished to guard it. Then I will come out of the wood and carry off the child. You must rush swiftly after me, as if you would seize it again from me. I will let it fall, and you will take it back to its parents, who will think that you have saved it, and will be far too grateful to do you any harm. On the contrary, you will be in high favor, and they will never let you want for anything again." The plan pleased the dog, and it was carried out just as it was arranged. The father screamed when he saw the wolf running across the field with his child, but when old Sultan brought it back, then he was full of joy and stroked him and said, "Not a hair of yours shall be hurt. You shall eat my bread free as long as you live." And to his wife, he said, "Go home at once and make old Sultan some bread sop, and he will not have to bite. And bring the pillow out of my bed. I will give him that to lie upon." Henceforth, old Sultan was well off as he wished to be. Soon afterwards, the wolf visited him, and was pleased that everything had succeeded so well. "But gossip," said he, "you will just wink an eye if when I have a chance I carry off one of your master's fat sheep."
"Do not reckon upon that," answered the dog. "I will remain true to my master. I cannot agree to that."
The wolf, who thought that this could not be spoken in earnest, came creeping about in the night and was going to take away the sheep. But the farmer, to whom faithful Sultan had told the wolf's plan, caught him and dressed his hide soundly with the flail. The wolf had to pack off, but he cried out to the dog, "Wait a bit, you scoundrel. You shall pay for this." The next morning, the wolf sent the boar to challenge the dog to come out into the forest so that they might settle the affair. Old Sultan could find no one to stand by him but a cat with only 3 legs, and as they went out together, the poor cat limped along, and at the same time stretched out her tail into the air with pain. The wolf and his friend were already on the spot appointed, but when they saw their enemy coming, they thought that he was bringing a saber with him, for they mistook the outstretched tail of the cat for one, and when the poor beast hopped on its 3 legs, they could only think every time that it was picking up a stone to throw at them. So they were both afraid. The wild boar crept into the underwood, and the wolf jumped up a tree. The dog and the cat, when they came up, wondered that there was no one to be seen. The wild boar, however, had not been able to hide himself altogether, and one of his ears was still to be seen. Whilst the cat was looking carefully about, the boar moved his ear. The cat, who thought it was a mouse moving there, jumped upon it and bit it hard. The boar made a fearful noise and ran away, crying out,
"The guilty one! It is up in the tree!"
The dog and cat looked up and saw the wolf, who was ashamed of having shown himself so timid, and made friends with the dog. The Devil and his grandmother. There was a great war, and the king had many soldiers, but gave them small pay, so small that they could not live upon it. So 3 of them agreed amongst themselves to desert. One of them said to the others, "If we are caught, we shall be hanged on the gallows. How shall we manage it?" Another said,
"Look at that great cornfield. If we were to hide ourselves there, no one could find us. The troops are not allowed to enter it, and tomorrow they are to march away."
They crept into the corn. Only the troops did not march away, but remained lying all round about it. They stayed in the corn for 2 days and 2 nights, and were so hungry that they all but died. But if they had come out, their death would have been certain. Then said they, "What is the use of our deserting if we have to perish miserably here?" But now a fiery dragon came flying through the air, and it came down to them, and asked why they concealed themselves there. They answered, "We're 3 soldiers who have deserted because the pay was so bad, and now we shall have to die of hunger if we stay here, or to dangle on the gallows if we go out." "If you will serve me for 7 years," said the dragon, "I will convey you through the army so that no one shall seize you." "We have no choice and are compelled to accept," they replied. Then the dragon caught hold of them with his claws and carried them away through the air over the army, and put them down again on the earth, far from it. But the dragon was no other than the devil. He gave them a small whip and said, "Whip with it, and crack it, and then as much gold will spring up round about as you can wish for. Then you can live like great lords, keep horses and drive your carriages. But when the 7 years have come to an end, you are my property." Then he put before them a book, which they were all 3 forced to sign. "I will, however, then set you a riddle," said he, "and if you can guess that, you shall be free and released from my power." Then the dragon flew away from them, and they went away with their whip, had gold in plenty, ordered themselves rich apparel, and traveled about the world. Wherever they were, they lived in pleasure and magnificence, rode on horseback, drove in carriages, ate and drank, but did nothing wicked. The time slipped quickly away, and when the 7 years were coming to an end, 2 of them were terribly anxious and alarmed. But the third took the affairs easily and said, "Brothers, fear nothing, my head is sharp enough. I shall guess the riddle." They went out into the open country and sat down, and the 2 pulled sorrowful faces. Then an aged woman came up to them, who inquired why they were so sad. "Alas," said they, "how can that concern you? After all, you cannot help us." "Who knows?" said she. "Confide your trouble to me." So they told her that they had been the devil's servants for nearly 7 years, and that he had provided them with gold as plentiful as it had been blackberries, but that they had sold themselves to him and were forfeit to him if at the end of the 7 years they could not guess a riddle. The old woman said, "If you are to be saved, one of you must go into the forest. There he will come to a fallen rock, which looks like a little house. He must enter that, and then he will obtain help."
The two melancholy ones thought to themselves, "That will still not save us," and they stayed where they were. But the third, the merry one, got up and walked on into the forest until he found the rock house. In the little house, however, a very aged woman was sitting, who was the devil's grandmother, and asked the soldier where he came from and what he wanted there. He told her everything that had happened, and as he pleased her well, she had pity on him and said she would help him. She lifted up a great stone which lay above a cellar and said,
"Conceal thyself there. Thou canst hear everything that is said here. Only sit still and do not stir. When the dragon comes, I will question him about the riddle. He tells everything to me, so listen carefully to his answer."
At 12 o'clock at night, the dragon came flying thither and asked for his dinner. The grandmother laid the table and served up food and drink so that he was pleased, and they ate and drank together. In the course of the conversation, she asked him what kind of day he had had and how many souls he had got. "Nothing went very well today," he answered, "but I have laid hold of 3 soldiers. I have them safe."
"Indeed, 3 soldiers. That's something like, but they may escape you yet."
The devil said mockingly, "They are mine. I will set them a riddle which they will never in this world be able to guess."
"What is that riddle?"
she inquired. "I will tell you. In the great North Sea lies a dead dogfish that shall be your roast meat, and the rib of a whale shall be your silver spoon, and a hollow old horse's hoof shall be your wine glass." When the devil had gone to bed, the old grandmother raised up the stone and let out the soldier.
"Hast thou paid particular attention to everything?"
"Yes," said he. "I know enough and will contrive to save myself." Then he had to go back another way through the window, secretly and with all speed to his companions. He told them how the devil had been overreached by the old grandmother, and how he had learned the answer to the riddle from him. Then they were all joyous and of good cheer, and took the whip and whipped so much gold for themselves that it ran over the ground. When the 7 years had fully gone by, the devil came with the book, showed the signatures, and said, "I will take you with me to hell. There you shall have a meal. If you can guess what kind of roast meat you will have to eat, you shall be free and released from your bargain, and may keep the whip as well." Then the first soldier began and said, "In the North Sea lies a dead dogfish, and no doubt is the roast meat." The devil was angry and began to mutter, and asked the second, "But what will your spoon be?" "The rib of a whale that is to be our silver spoon." The devil made a wry face and growled, and said to the third, "And do you also know what your wine glass is to be?" "An old horse's hoof is to be our wine glass." Then the devil flew away with a loud cry, and had no more power over them. But the 3 kept the whip, whipped as much money for themselves with it as they wanted, and lived happily to their end. The Grave Mound. A rich farmer was one day standing in his yard inspecting his fields and gardens. The corn was growing up vigorously, and the fruit trees were heavily laden with fruit. The grain of the year before still lay in such immense heaps
on the floors that the rafters could hardly bear it. Then he went into the stable, where were well-fed oxen, fat cows, and horses bright as looking-glass. At length he went back into his sitting room, and cast a glance at the iron chest in which his money lay. Whilst he was thus standing surveying his riches, all at once there was a loud knock close by him. The knock was not at the door of his room, but at the door of his heart. It opened, and he heard a voice which said to him, "Hast thou done good to thy family with it? Hast thou considered the necessities of the poor? Hast thou shared thy bread with the hungry? Hast thou been contented with what thou hast, or didst thou always desire to have more?" The heart was not slow in answering, "I have been hard and pitiless, and have never shown any kindness to my own family. If a beggar came, I turned away my eyes from him. I have not troubled myself about God, but have thought only of increasing my wealth. If everything which the sky covers had been mine own, I should still not have had enough." When he was aware of this answer, he was greatly alarmed. His knees began to tremble, and he was forced to sit down. Then there was another knock, and the knock was at the door of his room. It was his neighbor, a poor man who had a number of children whom he could no longer satisfy with food. "I know," thought the poor man, "that my neighbor is rich, but he is as hard as he is rich. I don't believe he will help me, but my children are crying for bread, so I will venture it." He said to the rich man, "You do not readily give away anything that is yours, but I stand here like one who feels the water rising above his head. My children are starving. Lend me 4 measures of corn." The rich man looked at him long, and then the first sunbeam of mercy began to melt away a drop of the ice of greediness. "I will not lend thee 4 measures," he answered, "but I will make thee a present of 8. But thou must fulfill one condition." "What am I to do?" said the poor man. "When I am dead, thou shalt watch for 3 nights by my grave." The peasant was disturbed in his mind at this request, but in the need in which he was, he would have consented to anything. He accepted, therefore, and carried the corn home with him. It seemed as if the rich man had foreseen what was about to happen, for when 3 days were gone by, he suddenly dropped down dead. No one knew exactly how it came to pass, but no one grieved for him. When he was buried, the poor man remembered his promise. He would willingly have been released from it, but he thought, "After all, he acted kindly to me. I have fed my hungry children with his corn, and even if that were not the case, where I have once given my promise, I must keep it." At nightfall, he went into the churchyard and seated himself on the grave mound. Everything was quiet, only the moon appeared above the grave, and frequently an owl flew past and uttered her melancholy cry. When the sun rose, the poor man betook himself in safety to his home, and in the same manner the second night passed quietly by. On the evening of the 3rd day, he felt a strange uneasiness. It seemed to him that something was about to happen. When he went out, he saw, by the churchyard wall, a man whom he had never seen before. He was no longer young, had scars on his face, and his eyes looked sharply and eagerly around. He was entirely covered with an old cloak, and nothing was visible but his great tea riding boots. "What are you looking for here?" the peasant asked. "Are you not afraid of the lonely churchyard?" "I am looking for nothing," he answered, "and I am afraid of nothing. I am like the youngster who went forth to learn how to shiver, and had his labor for his pains, but got the king's daughter to wife and great wealth with her. Only I have remained poor. I am nothing but a paid-off soldier, and I mean to pass the night here, because I have no other shelter." "If you are without fear," said the peasant, "stay with me and help me to watch that grave there." "To keep watch is a soldier's business," he replied. "Whatever we fall in with here, whether it be good or bad, we will share it between us." The peasant agreed to this, and they seated themselves on the grave together. All was quiet until midnight, when suddenly a shrill whistling was heard in the air, and the two watchers perceived the evil one standing bodily before them.
"Be off, you ragamuffins,"
cried he to take them.
"The man who lies in that grave belongs to me. I want to take him, and if you don't go away, I will wring your necks."
"Sir, with the red feather," said the soldier, "you are not my captain. I have no need to obey you, and I have not yet learned how to fear. Go away. We shall stay sitting here." The devil thought to himself,
"Money is the best thing with which to get hold of these two vagabonds."
So he began to play a softer tune, and asked quite kindly if they would not accept a bag of money and go home with it. "That is worth listening to," answered the soldier, "but one bag of gold won't serve us. If you will give us as much as will go into one of my boots, we will quit the field for you and go away."
"I have not so much as that about me,"
said the devil,
"but I will fetch it. In the neighboring town lives a money changer who is a good friend of mine and will readily advance it to me."
When the devil had vanished, the soldier took off his left boot and said, "We will soon pull the charcoal burner's nose from him. Just give me your knife, comrade." He cut the sole off the boot and put it in the high grass near the grave, on the edge of a hole that was half overgrown. "That will do," said he. "Now the chimney sweep may come." They both sat down and waited, and it was not long before the devil returned with a small bag of gold in his hand. "Just pour it in," said the soldier, raising up the boot a little. "But that won't be enough." The black one shook out all that was in the bag. The gold fell through, and the boot remained empty. "Stupid devil," cried the soldier. "It won't do. Didn't I say so at once? Go back again and bring more." The devil shook his head, went, and in an hour's time came with a much larger bag under his arm. "Now pour it in," cried the soldier. "But I doubt the boot won't be full." The gold clinked as it fell, but the boot remained empty. The devil looked in himself with his burning eyes, and convinced himself of the truth.
"You have shamefully big calves to your legs,"
cried he, and made a wry face. "Did you think," replied the soldier, "that I had a cloven foot like you? Since when have you been so stingy? See that you get more gold together, or our bargain will come to nothing." The wicked one went off again. This time he stayed away longer, and when at length he appeared, he was panting under the weight of the sack which lay on his shoulders. He emptied it into the boot, which was just as far from being filled as before. He became furious and was just going to tear the boot out of the soldier's hands. But at that moment the first ray of the rising sun broke forth from the sky, and the evil spirit fled away with loud shrieks. The poor soul was saved. The peasant wished to divide the gold, but the soldier said, "Give what falls to my lot to the poor. I will come with thee to thy cottage, and together we will live and rest in peace on what remains, as long as God is pleased to permit." The Peasant and the Devil. There was once on a time a far-sighted, crafty peasant whose tricks were much talked about. The best story is, however, how he once got hold of the devil and made a fool of him. The peasant had one day been working in his field, and as twilight had set in, was making ready for the journey home, when he saw a heap of burning coals in the middle of his field, and when full of astonishment, he went up to it. A little black devil was sitting on the live coals. "Thou dost indeed sit upon a treasure," said the peasant. "Yes, in truth," replied the devil, "on a treasure which contains more gold and silver than thou hast ever seen in thy life." "The treasure lies in my field and belongs to me," said the peasant. "It is thine," answered the devil, "if thou wilt for 2 years give me the half of everything thy field produces. Money I have enough of, but I have a desire for the fruits of the earth." The peasant agreed to the bargain. "In order, however, that no dispute may arise about the division," said he, "everything that is above ground shall belong to thee, and what is under the earth to me." The devil was quite satisfied with that, but the cunning peasant had sown turnips. Now when the time for harvest came, the devil appeared and wanted to take away his crop, but he found nothing but the yellow withered leaves, while the peasant, full of delight, was digging up his turnips. "Thou hast had the best of it for once," said the devil, "but the next time that won't do. What grows above ground shall be thine, and what is under it mine." "I am willing," replied the peasant. But when the time came to sow, he did not again sow turnips, but wheat. The grain became ripe, and the peasant went into the field and cut the full stalks down to the ground. When the devil came, he found nothing but the stubble, and went away in a fury down into a cleft in the rocks. "That is the way to cheat the devil," said the peasant, and went and fetched away the treasure.